Well, hi there, Saxophone fans. This is Steve Goodson. I know that's a total surprise to you. And I'd like to welcome you, each one and all, to our online seminar tonight. And those of you who know me well, and I'm glad I got my good friend Casey Ray Lipe here with me, and Chad. Man, with these two guys watching my back, I ain't worried about nothing. But anyway, here's the deal. I am no stranger to controversy. Throughout my career, it's been like that. Lars, welcome, my friend. I always took candy from strangers. I admit that. But, that being said, we've kind of carved out a nice little niche for ourselves in what we do because we do stuff that other people can't do and probably maybe they won't do. But we've learned a thing or two along the way. And tonight we're going to talk about one of the coolest subjects you ever heard of that relates to saxophones, and that is cryogenic treatment. And here's a couple of things you need to know before we get down into this. And we're going to take your questions at any time you wish to pose them during this seminar. First, you're safe from me. We are, as most of you know, no longer really in the repair business other than for our own instruments that we sold. We don't do any outside repair anymore. And consequently, we're no longer in the cryo business for customer horns. Now, that being said, here's something you need to understand clearly. Since 1995, all of my personal horns, mine that I played, and back when I was playing for a living, all of those horns were cryoed. All of them. We've also been a party to Cryo, and I'm not sure of the number. I'd have to, dig out all those records from way back when. Between probably 125 and 150 customer horns over the years. And so I would respectfully submit that I probably have at least as much experience with cryo as anybody in the saxophone business, probably more. And there's my good lifelong friend, Sonny Campbell, joining us. And Sonny, you can get your trombone cryoed too. Now, listen, let me tell you something. I have never had anybody who had the horn cryoed by us or heard of anybody had it done right by anybody else that wasn't 100% satisfied with the results. And I want to tell you something else. Now, those of you that know a little something about Saxophone products know that we are a tiny little company. Tiny company. We like it that way. But the fact of the matter, Chad, I'm going to get to that in a few minutes. But Donna Schwartz, thank you for joining us. I'm honored. But at any rate, the Yamaha Corporation, who is, the 800-pound gorilla in this industry, they are cryoing at their facility out in Los Angeles that they take care of their endorsing artists and Indian chiefs and all that and stuff for their dealers. And I had an occasion, as I was researching this seminar, to speak with my long-term buddy, Jeff Peterson, who runs that facility for them, and got Jeff's experience with cryo, and it's all good. He's had his personal horns done too, as well as horns for a lot of their artists. And I believe they've been doing this out there in LA since about 2008, and they ain't stopped yet. So that tells you something. So at any rate, here's the thing. That to me is kind of a recommendation. Now, as I was researching this article, I found that a lot of those self-appointed experts in physics that you find all over the internet. I mean, these real experts, you know. Like one of them, as I was looking in some of the archives of Sax on the web, the Saxophone misinformation site, the only guy who has ever been expelled from NatBert, not suspended, not censured, expelled. Well, he was talking about how it can't work. Of course, he ain't ever done it himself, you know, but it can't work, you know. And he's world famous, too, in his own mind, because all that son of a bitch has ever done is publish his own stuff on the internet. Nobody else pays him to do it. Huh. Go figure. Anyway, there were some other experts out there talking about, you know, how it can't possibly work. You know, one of them even claimed he was a coffee expert too. And then there's some son of a bitch in England that, you know, he don't know his ass from third base either. But anyway, I get off point. Let's talk about some Mythbuster stuff right out of the box here, and then we'll get back. And once again, we're going to answer your questions. Now, something that's very commonly believed about this process and couldn't be further from the truth is that what you do if you want to cryo a saxophone is you take it and you dip it into a vat of liquid nitrogen. Just well, that ain't the way it's done, folks, and I'm going to explain to you how it's actually done in a few minutes. Another thing is that Richard, pleased to have you with us. I'm honored. One of the things that also are discussed is that the pads must be removed. Now, full disclosure, when we were doing cryo for customers, the house rules were that we would not cryo a saxophone unless we also overhauled it. And the reason for that is that we believed that you needed to take the pads out and you know, if nothing else, take the keys off the horn and just cryo the body and the neck and the bell, of course, and both. Well, I'd say that there's a difference of opinion on that, and I've had personal horns of mine. Some of mine been done with the pads on, some of them been done with the pads off. And I believe there is a difference. All the customer horns were done with the keys and pads off. But on my personal stuff, we did it both ways. And here's the thing. Pads, if we're going to drop the temperature of the instrument with the pads in it down to 300 degrees below zero, what's going to happen to all the moisture that's within the pads? And there is moisture in there. Don't you kid yourself. There's plenty of moisture. It's going to turn to ice. Can you say freeze-dried? Sure. You can dry something out by freezing it. And the moisture will turn to Felix, honored that you joined us. But at any rate, yeah, that'll eliminate the moisture in the pads. And is that a good thing? Maybe yes, maybe no. I would say maybe definitely no to take it out. But there is a way around that problem. Now, I will tell you one thing that does happen, and I've been a party to doing this to quite a few horns with the pads in, and the most I've ever had come loose was Tom Fitzpatrick. Now, there's a guy that can play. He's my buddy too, but he can play. He's my hero. But at any rate, I've had 2 pads fall out of a horn, that we got back from having cryoed, okay? And that only happened a couple of times. I think that you do stand a chance of the pads falling out if whoever put them in left some air pockets back there. I think that's asking for trouble. But I don't think that's nearly as big a problem as this business of drying them out by freezing the water out of them. Now, so when we talk about the process for doing it, I'll cover this point in greater detail. Now, another thing that I hear all the time from these experts and all these physicists from MIT that are all over the internet talking about their saxophones is that it will change the sound. And I want to assure you, I don't know anybody that's ever had this done and thought it changed the sound of their horn one little bit. That's not what it does. That's not the way it works. It definitely changes the way the horn plays for the better. Because cryo, by taking the stress out of the lattice of molecules that is the way brass and copper are, cryo makes the response quicker, and it also makes the dynamic range significantly bigger. I would say on my horns, they all got at least 25% bigger in dynamic range, softer softs, louder louds, as a direct result of cryo. Another thing that I've heard from also some of these same experts was that cryo would change the way the keys fit on the horn. You know, you take the keys off, you have the horn cryoed, and then you try to put those same keys back on, and it's going to be different because, well, I don't know, they never did explain why that was, but it doesn't. And another thing I've heard was that it will remove or damage the lacquer. Now I want to tell you something. If you get a horn cryoed and it comes back and some of the lacquer's flaking off and all that, that lacquer was going to come off anyway. And I've only seen that happen with the horns that had that old-fashioned nitrocellulose lacquer that nobody uses anymore. But at any rate, Jerry, you ask all the questions you want now. But with the epoxy-based lacquers that we use today, that's just not an issue. It just doesn't happen. Now, the main thing that I keep hearing from all of these experts, and I mean, I'm talking about real experts, that these guys will put up a website and they'll just tell you all kind of crazy crap. Of course, nobody else ever quotes them. Nobody ever pays them to write for their saxophone magazines and, or any other music magazine. These guys are strictly self-appointed experts. Do you hear me? Self-appointed. That's the key word. And they're going to say it makes no difference and all this is all strictly a myth and it's a placebo thing. Well, I don't think so. I think I've done enough of this to know, and I think I'm also a sophisticated enough player. Now, I didn't say I was the best player in the world. I didn't say that, but I said I've done a lot of this, and I've played a lot of instruments, and I think I can tell the difference. So I'm going to tell you that, these experts don't know the ass from third base. And that's the only way I know to put it. So let's talk about what are we trying to accomplish with cryogenic treatment. I'm not trying to accomplish anything whatsoever except to quicken the response of the horn and to increase the dynamic range. I'm not trying to change anything else. Nothing. Now, that being said, here's something that I might want to use cryo for, that if the horn has had a massive amount of dent work done, dent work is going to, any repairman will tell you, you whip enough of those dents out, or rub them out, or use that magnetic dent removal system like we use. If the dents are significant, you're going to do what's called work hardening the brass, and it gets brittle. And you can test this yourself. Take a piece of copper wire or brass wire, rub it back and forth like this a few times, and it's going to break. Why? Because it got brittle. That's called being work hardened. And so at any rate, cryo will release the tension that comes with work hardening, and it will make your world a lot better there on that. So let's talk about how we actually do this cryo. And I'm having to use, this a long story, but my printer is on to Fritz. And let's talk about how we actually do this. In order to cryo a horn, we've got to have what we call in the trade an oven. Well, and this is essentially an insulated box. And the insulated box, now it's got to be very good, well insulated, because it's going to get down to 300 degrees below zero inside that thing. And something that cold will hurt you, of course. But at any rate, what we do is we have that box, and we have what's called a diffuser. Now, what a diffuser is it's an apparatus whereby you take air and you put it under a little bit of pressure just with a fan or something. And then you have an apparatus that, kind of like a garden sprinkler, if you will, and it puts a superfine mist of something in that air. Well, what are we using? We're using liquid nitrogen. And so we're going to put a incredibly fine mist of liquid nitrogen in there, and we're going to blow that air on the interior of that oven, and sure enough, it's going to get real cold in there. So, we also have some little solenoids and different things to measure the temperature and all that, see where we are, so we can kind of keep control of that process. And that's very important. That controlling is called the ramp. In other words, how far down and how quickly do you want to take it down? How long do you leave it at whatever the ultimate lowest temperature is? And how quickly do you bring it back up? Now, if you're sitting at the bar buying the drinks for the guys that are in the cryo treatment and you say, well, what's your ramp? I want to do a tenor saxophone. Well, they're probably not going to tell you. They're going to look you in the eye and tell you that's proprietary information. And it's a trade secret, and it's like the 11 herbs and spices or the recipe for Coca-Cola. You're not going to get to know. Now, the fact of the matter is virtually all of these places that have cryo machines bought them pre-programmed from the factory. Yeah, that's right. They don't really have any ability to vary that ramp up or down. Now, here's some things about the ramp. You don't want to take it down very quickly. And you certainly don't want to let it come from 300 degrees below zero up to ambient room temperature very quickly. Man, you ask it for all kind of trouble. So how do we control that? Well, there's such a thing as a regular model and there's a deluxe model of these cryo machines. Regular model, and it's pre-programmed, flip the switch on, off it goes. A deluxe model has got a little more sophisticated apparatus, and it has a heating element as well as the diffuser that adds cold, because if it's getting too cold too quick, I might want to inject a little bit of heat so I control my ramp. And then when I get it down to the ultimate temperature and leave it there for as long as we want to, and start bringing it back up, I want to do a couple of things. Thing number one is I might want to interject a little heat along the way so I control that ramping and get it, the way I want it. And another thing I want to do is, because I don't want anything drying out excessively, I might want to inject a little bit of moisture from time to time as it's ramping back up to replace that. Hadn't thought about that, had you? Well, it's true. Keith, honored that you're with us again. You're here on every one of these things. So, at any rate, I want you to understand that you got to pay attention. Now, I'll tell you the ramp that we typically use on our my horns and all that. We typically ramp them down from ambient room temperature to 300 degrees below zero over 24 hours. We leave them there for about 12 hours or so. And then we ramp it back up from 300 below zero to ambient room temperature over about 24 hours. Well, I'm going to tell you the truth now. Full disclosure, those of you who are pleased and honored to know the members of my posse know that one of the long-term posse members is my good buddy, Dave Lovett, from Indianapolis, Indiana. Now, Dave is a very fine saxophone player. Dave's a very fine guitar player. Dave's also one of the greatest guys I ever knew. Dave's company, Dave owns a big manufacturing company. It's a huge operation. It's called Weber Manufacturing. Dave's family has owned that company since the 1940s, I believe, and Dave's the sole owner now. And I mean, it's a big operation now. Among the things that Dave makes there at Weber Manufacturing is they make cryogenic equipment. And Dave's the source of a lot of my information on Cryo, because they make stuff for all kinds of big industrial clients. Cryo is used very commonly in the oil drilling business because those drill bits that they use are unbelievably expensive. They get those cryoed so they last a lot longer. Competitive shooters usually get the gun barrels cryoed. If you have engines, automobile engines such as that, I know Dave's, I'm not going to call the names of some of his clients that I know, but let's just say they're the biggest car manufacturers in the world, have hired Dave's company to manufacture custom cryo equipment to treat expensive automobile engines to increase their longevity. There are a lot of other applications. You can look all that up on the internet. Mark, I hadn't talked to you in a long time. You ought to call me sometime, just see how you are. But at any rate, on this cryo business that Dave does for me, one time I sent Dave a brand new horn up there. And this particular horn that I sent him was a very special horn because it was a gift to me from the owner of one of the big saxophone companies in Asia that I used to work for. And Dave took that horn, and I think he threw a couple of his personal horns in the box at the same time, probably. And he ramped it down, and he ramped it back up, and he ramped it down, and he ramped it back up, and down and up, and down and up for 6 weeks. And man, when that brand new horn got back to me, that son of a bitch played like it was 40 years old. And you see, that's what we ultimately want to accomplish. You know, guys say, oh, these old horns play better. Well, of course they do. Because if you got a horn that's 40, 50 years old, and that horn has been played a lot, that horn over 40, 50 years gets accustomed to resonating at a certain frequency range, and it's just like a pair of shoes. You buy a new pair of shoes, you walk out the shoe store wearing them, and they hurt your feet. 2 weeks, they break in good, and they play, you know, the shoes are a lot more comfortable. Cryo does the same thing, which raises a question that Donna Schwartz asked me when we were talking about this last week. Donna says, well, Steve, listen, Donna's got a bunch of fine instruments now. She does. But one of the horns that Donna has, she's got a old Mark 6. And honestly, would it make my old Mark 6 better? Well, the fact of the matter is that unless that horn's had a significant repair on it, which I don't believe Donna's has, then the fact of the matter is I don't think it makes a lot of difference because that horn's already well broken in. And I know it sure sounds good when Donna plays it. So I watch her seminars every week and learn something. But at any rate, now we're talking about how we have different ramps up and down, and isn't anybody going to necessarily tell you what their ramp is? Here's something else. Different temperatures will give you different degrees of effect. Now, Dave Lovett tells me that you can take your instrument down to about 100 degrees below zero. That's still plenty cold. And that 100 degrees below zero will make a fairly significant difference in the way your horn plays. But you know, those of you who know me know one of my abiding principles of my life is that too much is always better than not enough. Well, my horns all go all the way down to 300 degrees. You know, I want to maximize that thing, that effect. But you know, different places, you know, use different bottom points and different ramps up and down and all that. Now, let's get to some of the frequently asked questions that I hear all the time about this stuff. And one of them is, well, Steve, if I send my horn off to get it cryoed, how long are they going to keep my horn? How long is it going to take? Well, okay. Really, I don't know anybody in the cryo business, and I'll stand for correction if I'm wrong, that's doing musical instruments now. I'm not talking about, you know, General Motors, anybody like that. I'm talking about, you know, Bob's Best Repair Shop. But if you've got a repair shop and you're doing cryo, you probably can't put but one baritone sax in that cryo machine at a time, or you might put 3 or 4 trumpets or a couple of trombones or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, now when we had it done by a third-party vendor, and I'm going to tell you some of the people that do this in a minute, but we would make a reservation, and yeah, I'm going to send this tenor up there, and we're going to do it Thursday, and that means you'll send it back to me on Monday or whatever, you know. But it's like anything else dealing with a vendor. You know, you need to make a reservation and all that, and understand all the vendors are liars. But we had good relationship with the companies that we used, and we were usually able to hit those targets. So they shouldn't keep your horns but a few days. Now, who does it? I think in any major city, you're going to find at least one company that does cryogenic treatment. Now, here in New Orleans, where, you know, we're at the belt buckle of the oil patch, man, there's all kind of people doing it because they're processing those hideously expensive drill bits for the drilling down into the Gulf and all that. Now, here's what you need to know. If you find there in your city some people that are doing cryo, well, that's good. But you need to go talk to them and see what kind of experience do you have doing saxophones. Because if they're just doing automobile engine parts or gun barrels or whatever, you know, I would submit that's maybe a different skill set than, you know, doing saxophones. So, you know, I'd find out what their experience is with doing musical instruments. But if you look on the internet, there are a number of people, and a good sign that they've at least done this before is that they'll have a price list, and the price list will say we do this much to do a gun barrel, and we could do this much to do a piccolo, and we do this much to do a flute, and we do this much to do a trombone and all that, and with this much to do an oil well bit and all that. And so it's not hard. I'll tell you one company that I felt like I had real good luck with that did a good job, and they're not the only ones to do a good job now, is Cryo Pro in Springfield, Missouri. They were nice people. They did what they said. Their fees were very reasonable, and they always were on top of their schedule, and I appreciated that. Now, speaking of their fees, what does it cost? The first horn that I had cryoed, I had a tenor done in 1995, and it cost me $150 was the fee for cryoing that horn. And that was in $1995. And as I was researching this presentation for you, I realized that now the going rate seems to be from $100 to $150, but that's in 2018 dollars. So it's gotten less expensive, and maybe that's a good thing. You know, maybe that's a good thing. Lou Dixon, thank you, dear. I'm always glad to see you here. Now, here's a couple other things that I want you to understand is that we can, you know, talk about all these different fees and all that, and it's always worth what it's worth. You know, find somebody that you can establish a good relationship with. Okay. Another frequently asked question is, what kind of disasters or problems have we had? The only disaster I've ever had is I once sent off a client's Yamaha 62 tenor. I think it was a tenor. But anyway, sent off a Yamaha 62, and it had a plastic thumb rest. And sure enough, it came back cracked. Plastic and cryo don't get along very well. So you have been warned. Pop all that plastic stuff off if you're going to leave the rest of the horn assembled. What's got to be sent? Well, like I said, we send the neck, the body tube, the bow, and the bell. If you want to send the rest of it, fine. That's on you. Now, something that I've been asked several times, I never thought of this, but now that you mention it, something to consider, is what's the effect on the spring tension? Well, I haven't seen any that I thought the spring itself changed, or you know, the tension. But one thing that Dave Lovett was pointing out to me was that the springs themselves, which is steel, they probably gonna last longer. And installing new springs is a major pain, so that's a good thing. Now, another thing that people ask and frequently ask questions is, what about other industries that use them? And I think I've mentioned most of them, and it's the petroleum industry, the automotive industry, firearms, and really any place steel's rubbing against steel, you probably get some benefit. Now, what's the effect on other metals? Now, all the horns that we build here at Saxophone Made Products are all either brass, rose brass, we don't use any ordinary brass, or they're copper. Over the years, we have flirted with solid silver necks and bells and other things. And I own, because I used to be, before I moved to New Orleans, I was a very enthusiastic flute player. And at one time, I think I can say that I played flute as well as I played the saxophone and enjoyed it. But I got to New Orleans, found out didn't anybody use flute players. So my chops got away from it. But I've got a bunch of fancy flutes. And I've sent off some of my solid silver flutes to have them cryoed, and did get them cryoed. Didn't make a damn bit of difference. I sent some of my solid silver saxophone necks, often had them cryo, didn't seem to make a damn bit of difference. I have also had some of my stainless steel mouthpieces done. Maybe yes, maybe no, I'm not sure. Brass mouthpieces. I'm not sure you can tell a lot of difference in just the mouthpiece. You know, on wood, you know, like a clarinet or one of our Jack of Spades mouthpieces and all that, I don't think it makes any difference. And I would sure be scared of that. I sure would be afraid it would split on me. I've had people ask me, said, well, Steve, listen, I can't afford to get my horn done. You know, wait a minute, you telling me you can't afford $100? Let me tell you something. My bar bill runs more than that sometimes. But anyway, they say, how much can I get my neck done for? I don't know. I don't know anybody's doing just necks. The times that I sent those silver necks up, and on all of my horns, I've got multiple necks for all my horns, so I'd send them all up, and they just throw them all in there. Oh, but we never did any just necks because we weren't that business. So cryo is good for some metals. I couldn't tell the difference in some others. Your mileage may vary. I talked to a bunch of those high-end flute guys and that I know, and they all said, no, we never get our stuff cryoed. But they do have a technique they call homogenation, which is not soaking it in milk, but it's they vibrate it, and they say that makes solid silver flutes play better and all that. I don't know. At any rate, plastic, no, I would say just based on thumb rest and, you know, octave key buttons and all that, no, it's probably not a good idea. Okay, people want to know, how much does a cryo machine cost? The ones that you can buy now are, the going rate seems to be around 50 grand. And you know, I'm not going to buy one, but I did do a little looking around, and Dave Lovett and I were talking about making, perhaps having Weber Manufacturing, his company, manufacture a cryo machine specifically for the instrument repair industry. And we could, you know, it doesn't need to be as big as some of this other stuff. Now, when I say for the instrument repair facility, I'm talking about good buddy Tom Barbary today. Tom is a master repairman for those of you who are in the New Orleans area. But Tom does an awful lot of tubas and sousaphones because he is, by profession, a tuba and sousaphone player. He got one of those big ultrasonic cleaners and all that. Well, hell, to put a sousaphone bell in a cryo machine, you'd need a huge cryo machine. Cost a lot of money. But if we were going to confine ourselves to saxophones, and trumpets, and trombones, and the like, and stay away from those tubas, then you could probably build one about the size of a big Coleman cooler. Yeah. And you could probably get the price down a fair amount. What's that number? I don't know. And Dave and I were talking about it. We don't know what that number is, but we might pursue that and let you know. And all of that. Now, you know, we talked about cryoing older horns and all that, but here's something else that I think is something that nobody's asked me, but I'm very aware of. You know, like I said, I've had a lot of horns done, both my own horns and customer horns. And here's the thing. The horn comes back to you, you unbox it, you open the case and look, and it doesn't look any different. No, it doesn't look at least bit different. So how could that be if you had it cryoed? Well, you can't look and tell. You can look with an electron microscope, let you see the lattice of molecules in there that we're trying to relieve stress in. But with regard to, just equipment you have there in the privacy of your own home, no, you can't tell. But here's something you can tell, and I've noticed this on every horn I've ever had done. When they come back, they smell different, and they all smell the same, no matter where I've had them cryoed. And I think that has to do with the moisture going in and out, such that, but they all have a very distinctive, very temporary smell. It's not unpleasant, and it doesn't last, but it's always definitely there. So I know that the job actually got done. So that's what I know about cryo. Like I said, I'm a very enthusiastic user. I've actually done it myself. I've actually done it for other people, and they were all happy. And so I'm telling you, if you think it might be of some benefit to you, try it yourself. It's not expensive. Try it yourself. Don't listen to these physics experts out there who getting kicked out of NAPRT and all that. They don't know what the hell they're talking about because they ain't never done it themselves. It's true. They ain't never done it. So you try it, make up your own mind. If you have questions about cryo or anything else about saxophones, saxophone repair, or saxophone manufacturing, or the meaning of life, good bourbon, whiskey, anything else, you let me know. I'm not hard to get hold of. You can call me during business hours. You can email me, send me smoke signals, whatever. I don't care. But I love to hear from you, and I'm always interested in your comments on our seminars. So I've enjoyed speaking to you tonight. I hope you learned something. If nothing else, I hope it makes you think. So this is Steve Goodson reminding you, practice long tones every day, and remember, you keep your reed wet. I'll talk to you next time. Goodbye for now.